So excited that you're joining us here to talk about Winter Wonderland in Banff and Lake Louise. Summertime has come to an end, unfortunately, or fortunately for those of you who love winter season. But we are going to talk about Banff and Lake Louise comprehensively, but our main focus tonight would be around winter activities as we are getting into winter time, and also inspire you to travel within Canada. As some of you who are following the virtual travel series, we covered Eastern Canada. So we traveled to Newfoundland and Labrador. We traveled to a couple of spots here in Ontario. We went to Prince Edward County in Ontario. And moving forward, I have Greater Victoria scheduled on our virtual travel series, as well as Vancouver Islands, and the rest is coming. Manitoba is on the list. So there are so many of other great Canadian destinations that I will cover, but tonight we'll be talking about Banff and Lake Louise. So get ready, let's travel to these beautiful destinations. I wanted to first start off with reflecting a little bit on what travel means to you, and thinking about, reflecting on the past travels that we had, those great memories, and especially thinking about, how we're going to explore and travel in the pandemic time. One of my favorite quotes from Dalai Lama is, "Once a year, go someplace you have never been before." That probably, I would tweak that to say, well, more than a year, definitely more often. Go to the places that you've never been, experience something that you haven't done, and wonder and explore the world. I'm going to briefly introduce myself for those of you who are not very familiar with me. I guess, a lot of people, they've been a fan of those virtual travel series. And thank you so much for, spending your evenings and exploring beautiful destinations with me during this past couple of months. But my name is Leila Levy, and I have a boutique travel concierge and full service travel agency that creates dream vacations. And in the past couple of months, I've started focusing on virtual travel series. And because we can't travel physically, at least when I started back in March, we were in full lockdown and we could not really travel at all. And it was even hard to, figure out what's going to happen in the space of travel. But I love to share, inspire, and educate people about travel. And, in the meantime, if you are thinking about any kind of travel, if you are looking for any staycation ideas, reach out to me, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help. But my main focus is, obviously anything within the space of travel. But my main specialty, and part of the reason I got into the space of travel, was to book, a comprehensive itinerary and detailed plan, as that was something that I needed it myself. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook on Travel Design by Leila. I share tons of things just to give you a little bit of, all the things that I've been doing in the past little while. Mondays are our Good News Mondays. So we share tons of positive news that are happening in the space of travel, from, rapid testing in Alberta to Sunwing starting their operation to South, different safety protocols, or quite frankly, like one of the other things that I really love is working from, other destinations. So a couple of places actually are, providing this like work from home option from a different country, which I am actually very interested. So we've been sharing about all those good news on Mondays. Tuesdays, we share a lot about travel tips, and it will be different things. And so it will be a lot of different, travel related content that we continuously share through our social media and our newsletters. Without any further ado, I wanted to introduce my very special guest tonight. I have Lucas from Banff and Lake Louise Tourism. Hi, Lucas.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Leila.
Hello. So, Lucas, introduce yourself and tell us something fun about yourself.
Hi, my name is Lucas Procházka. As you can tell from the last name, I'm not from Canada. I'm originally from Czech Republic in Eastern Europe. I've been living in Banff in Canada since 2004, and I'm a business development manager at Banff and Lake Louise Tourism. And I guess fun fact would be, I was living in Banff full-time until a couple of years ago, and for the last 2 years, I split my time half between Banff and Ottawa. So usually summers in Banff and winter in Ottawa. So hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time, and hello to Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg, Camrose. Hope I didn't miss anybody. So welcome, everyone.
I can say that we're so jealous of you spending all your time, summertime, in this gorgeous place that we all wish to live. And I'm sure, like, I am so jealous. I'm sure others are. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucas, for being here. I wanted to start off with a couple of fun facts that you may not know about Lake Louise and Banff. So Lake Louise is one of the most, picturesque on the postcards that you can find when they talk about Canada adventure. So it's Canada's diamond in the wilderness. And it's so beautiful that everyone is so fascinated by Lake Louise. So if you haven't guessed already, the Lake Glacier combo were named after the British royal family, Queen Victoria and Princess Louise. And that's why the name is coming from. And maybe another fun fact for you guys is you probably, if you've seen the picture of Lake Louise, you can agree with me that, it has a very turquoise color, and it's because those glaciers, when they are melted and coming down, they're capturing some sort of a special, I think it's called rock flour, if I'm not mistaken. They gather that along the way when they go to the lake, and that's why that it gives it that very turquoise color, beautiful for Lake Louise. Another fun fact about skiing. So skiing was introduced to Banff and Lake Louise in 1909 by Swiss and Austrian mountain guides. As you can probably guess, they were more, in Swiss and Austria, they've been doing more skiing before we actually start doing that in Banff. And that was one of the other fun facts that I wanted to share with you. And in terms of, Banff and the amount of tourism, and I'm sure Lucas will talk about some of that later on, but Banff gets typically around 4 million visitors per year. And that's about 10,000 or like 11,000 visitor per day, which is, quite a very huge number, I would say, in terms of the tourism. I guess this year has been maybe a very different year for all of us in the travel and tourism, but hopefully we'll be back again and we're going to have this amount of visitors and maybe even like more back to our Canadian regions. The mountains in Banff National Park are up to 120 million years old, and that's even older than dinosaurs. So that was some fun fact that I come across and I wanted to share with you. That was super interesting. And in 1984, Banff has declared a World Heritage Site as part of Rocky Mountain Park World Heritage Site, which is, that means that it gets protected by and it's for its historical and cultural significance. Another fun fact, in 1883, three railway workers, they discovered the natural hot springs, that I will be briefly talking about them later on in the presentation. Unfortunately, the hot springs right now are closed, but it's one of my favorite things in Banff area. And now let's pass this on to Lucas. And Lucas, please tell us more about this region and take us there to Banff and Lake Louise.
Thanks, Leila. So yeah, I can actually kind of tie it into some of the fun facts that you just mentioned. As you showed before, in 1883, the hot springs were discovered. And then 2 years later, in 1885, Banff was declared the first national park in Canada. So that's where the whole national park system started. And now I believe in Canada, we have about 45 of national parks, but it all started in Banff in 1885. And we are also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So the whole area is protected, unspoiled. You can enjoy the clean mountain air. You can enjoy seeing wild animals, even in downtown Banff, early in the morning or in the evening when it's more quiet. And it just makes everything that you do, like hiking and skiing, that much more special. And we are definitely a year-round destination, but traditionally summer is our peak season. So our summer would be roughly from June to September. And when you did the math in one of your slides, it is true that we get over 4 million visitors a year. So the average is about 10,000. But as of last year, pre-COVID, the summer was so popular that in July and August, we would see between 40 and 50,000 visitors a day, actually. So yeah, so the shoulder season is this fall, winter, and spring, and then the summer would be quite busy with a lot of visitors. We are conveniently located only 1.5 hours away from Calgary International Airport, so it's easy for people to fly in and get to Banff. And we are also a home to 3 world-class ski resorts that are called Mount Norquay, Banff Sunshine, and Lake Louise Ski Resort. I can add a fun fact, or maybe you already know, all 3 of those ski resorts are actually now open, and we are skiing in Banff and Lake Louise. And it's incredible that in 2020, which is mostly filled with bad news, we got some amazing news, and we got lucky with early snowfall. And we got so much snow that Mount Norquay opened on October 24, which was the first ski resort in North America to be open. And Mount Norquay, they've been in business for 95 years, and this was the earliest opening date for them as well.
Wow, so that was quite a big good news for you guys.
Yes, definitely. And then October 31st, Lake Louise opened, and then Sunshine opened last weekend. And I can also add an interesting fact, as I just said, Mount Norquay has been around for 95 years. And there is a gentleman who lives in Banff. His name is Ed Hunter. And he was born the year that Mount Norquay opened for the first time. So he will be turning 95 soon. And he still skis almost 100 days every year. He's getting slower, but he's still very reliable, and he skis almost the whole season. He's a local legend.
That's part of the UNESCO heritage side of the whole park.
Definitely.
Awesome. So moving forward, how do we need to get there, Lucas?
Again, this is something that has significantly changed this year. As with the borders closed, we see much more local visitation. So most of our visitors these days drive from Calgary, Edmonton, other parts of Alberta, or from Saskatchewan and BC. And we see some people flying in from Ontario and Quebec. But what you see on the slide, this is on our typical year. Most people would fly to Calgary International Airport, which has really good connections to many Canadian, US, and overseas destinations. And as I said, it's only 1.5 hours away from Calgary to get to Banff and Lake Louise. Usually, you would have 2 different companies to choose from if you would like to get a bus transfer from the airport. The companies are called the Banff Airporter and Brewster Airport Express. The current situation is that Banff Airport still doesn't run their scheduled service, and they only offer private transfer at this point. and Brewster Express is scheduled to start scheduled service on December 1st. So again, this is hard to tell because the situation changes almost on a weekly basis and it's very fluid, but normally what you would see is between those two companies, each runs about 10 buses a day from 6 in the morning until 10 p.m. And yeah, the connection is, yeah, they have Wi-Fi on the bus. It's nice and comfortable. Other options to get from the airport to Banff is you can self-drive. There are car rentals available at the airport. And then in the summer, you can also arrive in Banff on board the Rocky Mountaineer from April to October normally.
Awesome. And I wanted to actually expand on Rocky Mountaineer because I thought it wouldn't be fair to talk about Banff and Lake Louise without mentioning Rocky Mountaineer. And for those of you who are following, we actually dedicated one of our Canadian virtual travel series dedicated to Rocky Mountaineer. And I had another private session, which we talked about Rocky Mountaineer, and we did virtual wine tasting for BC. But I want to quickly mention why Rocky Mountaineer is important. And Lucas, you know that, one of the Canadian signature experiences, which is something that, basically when Canada as a destination kind of like markets itself amongst other countries, there is, a vetting system that defines what are those Canadian signature experiences. And Rocky Mountaineer is one of those experiences that is defined as those like unique feature that a lot of people know Canada for. So, it's one of the most recognizable train journeys in the world. And because of its itineraries, which I'll briefly touch on, the onboard service, the impeccable luxury, and it's the only train actually that doesn't run overnight. So it's daylight only train, and that's why that it only runs from spring all the way to the fall. And they don't have any service during the winter time. Unfortunately, this year they had to cancel the entire season because of COVID. But again, hopefully next year, we're keeping our fingers crossed that this will be again back up in terms of the services, the food, the wine that they serve on the train. Everything is Canadian and Canadian made, from the salmon or from the Alberta beef that they serve on the train. The wine, everything is Canadian, prepared by Canadian chefs. Briefly talking about a couple of those journeys for Rocky Mountaineer. So this is the most historic and the most famous path, which goes from Vancouver through Kamloops to Lake Louise and Banff. And the reason that this is very famous is because this is that historic rail route or track that was uniting Western and Eastern Canada back in the time that British Columbia joined the rest of other provinces to join this the whole nation of Canada. So there is a lot of historical stuff that goes into this path, and a lot of people, this is actually the most popular route for the Rocky Mountaineer. Another one goes from Vancouver through Kamloops to Jasper. It goes through a lot of wilderness and a lot of sceneries. And the other one goes through Whistler, Quesnel, and Jasper again. And it goes through, close to the ocean all the way to the old mining town in North America, and then to Jasper. So those are, a couple of the three routes that Rocky Mountaineer offers. And again, now let's go back to learn more about the town of Banff, Lucas.
Okay, so inside Banff National Park, there are two small communities, the town of Banff and village of Lake Louise, and we represent both of them. That's why we are called Banff and Lake Louise Tourism. So the first one I will talk about is the town of Banff. it's a small community of about 8,000 people, and those who've been, that it's a small and very unique town. There is actually only 2 towns in all of Canada that are inside the national park. So it's Banff and the other one is Jasper. And what's specific about it is that tourism is the only thing we have. So pretty much every single person in town works for tourism, either for a hotel, a restaurant, gift shop, or an attraction. So we have a wide range of different accommodations options. There is about 50 different hotels, anything from luxury hotels like the Fairmont Hotel to boutique accommodation to some budget hotels. There are hostels, there are campgrounds, so something for every taste and every budget. There is also over 150 restaurants, bars, and pubs, and over 250 shops. So a lot to choose from for shopping and entertainment. The whole downtown area is very walkable, and you can walk anywhere within 5 to 10 minutes. And to make it even better and more interesting, this past summer, the whole downtown core area was closed to vehicles, and it was turned into a pedestrian zone. So it enabled people to physically distance safely because there was more space to walk, but also pretty much every single restaurant was able to open a patio on outside on the main street, and again, people could dine outside instead of inside. And what's also interesting, would like to mention, is the ROM, which is the Banff public transit system that we have in town. There are 3 different routes that go through town, and there is also a bus that goes from Banff to Kenmore, the town that is just outside the park, about 20 minutes away. And there is also a bus going from Banff to Lake Louise. So if you want to, not worry about parking and driving your own vehicle, you can also take the bus. And the other community is the village of Lake Louise. What's interesting about it, since we are doing the fun facts, is that at the elevation of 1,770 meters above the sea level, Lake Louise is the highest community in Canada. And it's located only 45 minutes away from the town of Banff. So it's very easy to combine, and many people do it, but they will stay 2 or 3 nights in Banff, and then they will go to Lake Louise for another night or 2. But also at the same time, if you like convenience, more people will stay for a bunch of nights in Banff and just drive to Lake Louise for the day or take the bus. It also has a bunch of different accommodation and dining options, but it is much smaller than Banff. While I would recommend Banff to somebody who is looking for more buzz and entertainment and more shopping options and more dining options to choose from, Lake Louise is more quiet, and you have the nature and the outdoors right at your doorstep. To give you an idea, when I mentioned about 50 different hotels in the town of Banff, Lake Louise will have less than 10. So it gives you something to compare. And it is where the famous Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise Hotel is located, and also the Lake Louise Ski Resort. Okay. Next slide, please.
This one is actually a video.
Okay, that played surprisingly well. I have to say, sometimes these videos get quite choppy, but I don't know if it was the same experience for everyone else, but this one played really well. So summer, as I mentioned, summer is our peak season. Depending on the activities that you are interested in, we define summer as roughly May to October. So most of these activities that I will be talking about are available from May to October. Sometimes depending on the season and on the weather and snow cover, it can be more, it can be shorter. It can be like June to September. So here on the screen, you can see some of the key experiences that we offer in the summer, and I will talk about some of them in more detail. But I just would like to mention that pretty much everything that I will be talking about is bookable with local suppliers, and you can do it as a guided experience. So people obviously come and do hiking or canoeing on their own or fishing. But I would say it is a better experience when you use one of the local guides, because they are knowledgeable, they are fun, they are experienced, and they can discover and show you things that you wouldn't notice on your own. So let's move to the next one. Hiking would be probably the most popular activity for most people that come to Banff and Lake Louise in summer. It's also my favorite thing to do. The season generally runs from June to October. And we have over 1,000 kilometers of different trails. And as I said, you can, of course, you can come and hike on your own, but there is a few local companies that can take you on a guided hike and talk more about wildlife and the history of the place and the first guides that they came and geology, and they can tell you lots of different interesting facts. And there is a great selection. So whether you have, kids with you, you are a family, or you are, depending on like you are fit or maybe you are not, or you don't want to get too tired, there is a great selection of really short, flat and easy hikes. But also you can go for a couple hours, you can go for a half a day, full day, or you can even do a multi-day hiking adventure.
One of the things that I have on my bucket list is actually a multi-day hike in the Rockies, and it's this Canadian company that would take you actually on a helicopter ride. They would drop you somewhere, and then you start the hike from there. So that's something that I have in my bucket list. I don't know if it's next summer or I'll have to figure out when, but that's I am super excited for that journey.
Okay, biking. Normally, I would say almost until maybe a couple of years ago, I would say this is a summer activity because people, would be choosing between road biking and mountain biking. But with the recent increase in fed biking, now we say this is a year-round experience because you can do it any time of the year. And for those who don't want to bring their own bike, there is a few places in Banff and in Lake Louise when you can either rent a bike or you can also go on a guided tour. And as of last summer, we also have a couple of places when you can rent an e-bike, if you want to save some energy and you don't want to get too tired.
Yeah, there's definitely a trend in fat bike and e-bikes that I see a lot in pretty much all the places that they are providing adventure. A lot of people are actually sticking to that. Horseback riding.
Yes, another exciting activity. The season for horseback riding usually goes from May to October. There are two companies. One is based in the town of Banff, and it's called Banff Trail Riders, and the other one is called Brewster Adventures, and they are based in Lake Louise. And they both offer different tours. Banff Trail Riders has more options because their tours start from a short 1 hour ride to rides that can take a couple of hours, 4 hours. They have a full day adventure, but they also own a couple of backcountry lodges. So with them, you can also go overnight for 2 days. You can do 3 nights or you can do 5 nights. So there's a wide range of different options. And next one, please. Golf. At the Banff Springs Hotel, we have the famous golf course Stanley Thompson. The season for this, again, would depend on the snow cover and on how cold and how wet the winter is, but usually May to October. And yeah, you can book 18 holes at the Stanley Thompson or 9 holes at the small golf course, which is called Tunnel Mountain.
Great. Some water adventures.
Some water adventures, yes. We've got some lakes and rivers, and so you can go and you can rent a canoe, you can rent a kayak, you can rent a stand-up paddleboard in the town. Pretty much in downtown Banff, there is a company called Banff Canoe Club, and they rent all these fun things like 2 blocks away from the main street. And you can also do whitewater rafting trips with 2 different companies. And if you want to try whitewater rafting, but you are maybe a little bit, timid or inexperienced, you want to just get a little bit of a taste, you can do what we call a float trip, which is a very, very mellow and family-friendly version of the whitewater when the water is flowing, but there are no big waves. It's very casual and very mellow.
What about the temperature of that water? Is that like glacier water?
It is pretty much everything is glacier water except for one lake, Lake Minnewanka. So it is cold. Like it's a special experience for those who want to go for a swim, but it's definitely, even in the middle of the summer, it is quite chilly, especially compared to lakes in Ontario. It's more like a very special there when you jump in for a few seconds to get cooled down, and it's not the water for a half an hour swim or something like that.
But it may encourage people not to fall in the water, like when they're doing like whitewater rafting, they're sticking to the boat so they don't fall in the water.
Yeah.
Okay, this is also a very special place. Lucas, tell us about Columbia Icefield.
So Columbia Icefield is a place on the Icefields Parkway. Icefields Parkway is the road that connects Banff and Lake Louise with the town of Jasper, and it is consistently rated as one of the top scenic drives in the world, and it is beautiful. I've done it so many times, and every time it is a special experience. The distance from Lake Louise to Jasper is about 220 kilometers. So in theory, you could do it in 2.5, 3 hours, but nobody does it because there is so many beautiful places to stop and take photos of the glaciers and mountains and lakes. And quite often you can see grizzly bears or moose and deer, some other wildlife on the side of the road. So it's quite easy to spend half a day or even full day on the road. And the highlight of the drive is the place called Columbia Icefield, which is high up in the mountains at about 2,000 meters. And there are two key experiences there, which is the Ice Explorer, that's the bus we are looking at, and the Glacier Skywalk, which was the photo before. Both of them are usually open from about mid-April to first week. Usually they open between late April and early May and stay open until October. So now they are closed for the season, but at this point, the plan is for them to open first week in May next year.
One of my most memorable things, and we actually did that with my family, we didn't do actually the bus, but I don't know whether that's still going on or not, but that we actually did a walk on the glacier. So it was a small tour operator that took us, and we basically spent almost like half day starting off from actual walking on the glacier. And again, one of the other mind-blowing thing for all of us was they had a stick in the glacier that showed where the snow, or where the the level of snow was from May, and we were visiting in July, and it was probably like 2 meters down. I think it was one of the most mind-blowing moment that I realized about the global warming, the amount of glaciers melting, which was, again, I haven't really realized it up until that time. So that was a very unique experience for me. The other slides are all about some of the year-round experiences.
Yeah, I was also gonna add about the Columbia Icefield. As you said, it is a fascinating place, and it's like being in a lab for the climate change, because one thing is that when you are on the road, when you park, this is basically where the glacier was coming all the way to in 1930s when they built the road. And now to get to the toe of the glacier, you have to walk over 1.5 kilometers. And they have these little signs, so it shows you this is where the glacier was in 1945, this is when it was in 1970, and you still keep going. So it shows you how much it's shrinking, and it's still a huge mass of ice. It is the largest accumulation or largest mass of ice outside the South and North ice polar circle. And also to give you an idea, the photo that you are looking at that point, the ice is as thick as the Eiffel Tower is tall. It's about 360 meters thick. So there's still a huge amount of ice, but it's at the same time, it's fascinating to see how quickly it is disappearing.
Yeah, for sure. And again, they don't allow you to do this on your own because this is quite a dangerous thing. And again, we went with special guide to walk us through, walk from this side and not the other side. Cause it's, as Lucas mentioned, it's quite a deep amount of ice. And trust me, you don't want to go down to the very bottom. So now talking about year-round experiences.
Yeah, so these are the experiences that you can enjoy anytime you visit. We have 3 sightseeing gondolas, one in Banff, one in Lake Louise, and one just outside the town of Banff on Mount Norquay. There are a couple of companies that do sightseeing, wildlife watching, and also helicopter tours. I know Leila mentioned there is 2 helicopter companies that will do. Depends on how much time and how much money your clients have, but they can do short sightseeing helicopter tours, but they can also do a lot of heli related activities. So you can do heli hiking trip, you can do heli fishing, they do heli barbecue lunch, they do even heli weddings when they will just take you somewhere remote to a mountain ridge or a top of a mountain and you can get married there. So they do lots of different activities that involve a use of a helicopter to make it a more unique and exclusive experience. And then scenic drives, as we mentioned, Icefields Parkway would be probably the most popular. That is like the highlight if you want to, rent a vehicle and just go for a drive and enjoy. We have some hot springs and spas. The famous Banff Upper Hot Springs, where the whole Banff National Park system was born, is now closed because, as I would like to point out, like pretty much every experience in Banff, almost every experience is still open and just modified to some extent to to the COVID situation and follow the guidelines. The Banff Upper Hot Springs is the one experience whereby its very nature, it's really impossible to have people socially distanced, in a pool of hot water. So this one is unfortunately still closed. There is caving available in Kenmore area just outside the park. And it's interesting, it is a year-round experience because what's funny about it is that because you go underground, once you get more like 10, 15, 20 feet underground, the temperature stays the same year around. So it really, once you are inside those caves, you can't really tell if it's July or January outside, the temperature is still the same. And then there are some historic sites and museums for people who like, to learn more about history and culture of the place. So as I said, we have these sightseeing gondolas, which are great for somebody who wants to get the views of the mountains without getting too tired. So the most famous one is the one in Banff. That's open year round. They usually close in January for a week for annual maintenance. So this coming January, it's gonna be January 11 to 22nd, but otherwise they're open year round, and the opening hours usually depend on the daylight. So for example, right now in the off season with short daylight, they are open from 11 in the morning until 4 p.m. But then in the summer, in the high season with long daylight, they will be open from 8 or 9 in the morning until 7 or 8 in the evening. There is also a gondola at Lake Louise, which in the summer is an amazing place to see some grizzly bears, because this gondola is at Lake Louise Ski Resort, which means you are in an open chair and you are riding over these ski runs, which in the summer are just these big meadows full of flowers, which is what the bears like. So almost every day you are guaranteed that you will see at least one grizzly bear there. And then the last one is at Mount Norquay. It's also a sightseeing chairlift, which has a fun tea house on top. So 3 different gondolas to choose from if you want to get these views and you don't want to spend hours hiking uphill and getting all tired and sweaty.
Awesome. I just wanted to point out that, generally, And in terms of like, you know, travel to Banff and Lake Louise, it doesn't necessarily need to be very expensive. So what I typically recommend to my clients, and again, if they haven't really explored that area, I would ask them to maybe fly to Calgary and then rent a car and explore Banff and Lake Louise and drive to Jasper. And one of the things that, you know, I've done it and I'm a big fan of, and again, if you don't want to go super, spend so much money on the, you know, the Rocky Mountaineer, you could still hop on a Via Rail overnight, which goes from one of the path is like from Jasper to Vancouver, and it's an overnight. You can stay in a, you know, luxury overnight train from Jasper to Vancouver. So that, I think, it's a really great way of seeing that area. Or if you're going with Rocky Mountaineer, as I shared, there is, you know, from Vancouver all the way to Banff and Lake Louise, and you can add some, you know, tours to take you to Jasper and back, and then again fly out of Calgary. So those are, you know, some of the options that you can do. But now let's move into some of the winter activities, which is what we want to focus on for tonight. Excellent. All right, so I wanted to start off with talking a little bit about the Christmas traditions in Banff and Lake Louise. And again, we have to understand that this year is quite a different year. So Lucas, I'll be so curious to know how you guys will be celebrating Christmas this year. But these are, a couple of interesting things that I wanted to, share for a typical year and a typical Christmas. Because a lot of people actually love to go during the Christmas time to the Banff and Lake Louise area. So definitely, it's a great time to hit the slopes. So the slopes are often a little quieter on Christmas Day, providing the perfect opportunity to take a few turns and burn a little bit of calories, and then come down and have a great meal at those amazing restaurants in Banff. The other, interesting thing, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more, is the horse-drawn sleigh, which is, one of those amazing things that you could keep warm under a blanket for a horse-drawn sleigh, which is an experience that a lot of people do, especially if you're traveling with families. Kids would love that, and you really, it's a warm experience, so you don't need to really. It's not a freezing experience. The other thing is go for a fresh air picnic. So traditional Christmas is a day gather around tree indoors, but why not adopt a refreshing tradition of time spent outdoor and sort of like try hiking Tunnel Mountain, snowshoeing around Lake Louise, and some ski touring, and then celebrate Christmas that way. Or getting cozy at a cabin. There are a couple of cabins if you don't want to stay in, luxury hotels, especially, a lot of people assume that, you only have the option to stay at Lake Louise, the Fairmont Chateau, which is, quite pricey, but there are so many other, cabins that are affordable and backcountry lodges that you can stay in. And there are so many amazing restaurants out, and Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, but like one of the other things that's been emerging in Banff is the craft beer. So craft beer culture has been emerging in Banff, which is very interesting for me. And again, one of the other things is like skating when the sun goes down, and just going and explore some of trails of Banff National Park. There are so many interesting trails, and one of, in fact, my favorite trails is the Hot Chocolate Trail. So there are, and again, I'm not too sure whether you're running it this year or not. But typically, you get a couple of places that they're participating, restaurants and cafes, and you go from one place to the other, and get hot chocolate on this hot chocolate trail, which is so interesting for me. So getting into more of the winter activities, Lucas, tell us more about what can we do during the winter time.
Yes, so winter is exciting time to visit Banff and Lake Louise. One of the reasons is that it is actually our low season in a normal year, when you can get good deals on flights and hotels, because as I said, most people visit in the summer. And when we talk about winter, all the activities that you see on this slide are usually offered from the 1st of December until the end of March. So 4 months, December to March. Sometimes we go on into April, but then it really depends again on the snow coverage and stuff. So it is safe to assume from December 1st until the end of March, with the exception of downhill skiing and snowboarding, which usually goes from around first or second week in November until mid or late May. So if the conditions are good, we can ski until the May long weekend, which is more than 6 months. But as I mentioned before, this year has been exceptionally good and generous for us. So we are already skiing. We've been skiing now for 2 weeks. And there are 3 ski resorts: Norquay, Lake Louise, and Sunshine. And it's very easy to buy a ticket for all 3 of them through one company. It's called Ski Big 3, and it's the sales and marketing company representing all 3 ski resorts. And I don't know if you have any skiers here in the audience, but I will just quickly highlight, there is over 8,000 acres of terrain. So especially Lake Louise and Sunshine are huge ski resorts. Norquay is a bit smaller, but it's very close to Banff. It takes probably less than 10 minutes to drive there from downtown Banff. So it's popular for those who just want to get out for a couple of hours, or sometimes locals will even go to ski on their lunch break. And what we can see here, as I said, long season, longest in North America, great dry snow, which is quite different from the more wet snow that you would experience in, let's say, Whistler or in Mont Tremblant. Because the Rockies are away from the ocean, the humidity in general is very low. So you will experience it immediately when you arrive. You can feel that the air is drier, and the same applies to snow. So what it means for people is that what we hear from our visitors is that you don't get as tired from skiing, because the snow is not the like wet, heavy snow that would make your legs tired. And we offer the usual services that you would see in other resorts, which means ski lessons, ski rentals, lockers. There are dining options. This year, it is slightly different. It is still an amazing experience, but there have been some modifications due to COVID. So the dining options are limited. There is more, I would say, encouragement for people to bring their own food or get a boxed lunch. We have heaters and some outdoor tents set up outside. So basically the idea is that the lodges at the base of ski resorts are still open for people to get in and then warm up a little bit, but kind of encouraging people to just like bring their own food, change at the car, and then you can hit the slope. So Again, compared to some other ski resorts in Canada, we currently don't limit the number of people at the ski hill, and you don't need to pre-book your ticket or anything. You can still buy a day ticket when you arrive. And it's because, again, we've got so many runs and the space is big, so we don't really expect crowds to be an issue even in COVID times. But we'll see how it goes. We've been skiing for 3 weeks, so there may be some learnings and some changes because everything is fluid and things need to stay nimble. But for now, this is how we operate our ski experiences. Johnston Canyon Ice Walk is a famous one. That's, as I said, skiing and snowboarding is the main reason for people to visit Banff and Lake Louise in winter, but there is definitely a lot of different experiences for those who either don't want to ski or are not skiers or have been skiing and get tired and want to try something else. So Johnston Canyon would probably be the most popular and the best seller in Banff National Park. It's a small canyon that is located halfway between the town of Banff and village of Lake Louise. It is accessible year-round, but in wintertime, it's the special and unique time when you can see the frozen waterfalls, walk on the boardwalk that you can see here on the slide. You can do it as a guided experience with one of the 2 companies that operate from November to April. They give you the ice cleats also for the duration of the trip, which is like these special devices that you put on the bottom of your shoes so that you don't slip. And there is hot chocolate and snacks involved, and a guide that will tell you a lot about the wildlife that lives in the area and just generally about the place. And again, new this year, they offer it also as a private experience. That's something I probably should mention. Most of these experiences, not that normally you would book and be with other people. You can still do them, and they ask people to wear masks and they lower the numbers, but most of those experiences now you can do also as a private experience to make people feel more comfortable.
That's a general trend that we're seeing in a lot of tour operators, that they are bringing the amount of seats to so there are definitely less seats, less number of people, and there are more private options, or sort of like put a bubble of with the people that you wanted to travel together together, and basically you could travel it this way.
Yes, it's true. And most of these experiences are done outdoors where the physical distance is easy to do because you are out in the open. So they just lower the numbers, ask people to keep some distance. One exception, I would say, is the 2 companies that offer helicopter tours, where obviously, you are in an enclosed space. So what these 2 companies do, that they will only book one family or one cohort or one bubble. So if you book the helicopter tour and you are on your own, or there is only 2 of you, there won't be anybody else on the helicopter. Mm-hmm. So here we see snowshoeing, another very popular activity in Banff. These tours are usually offered from December to April as a guided experience. And the reason snowshoeing is so popular these days is that unlike skiing and snowboarding, you don't really need any lessons, you don't need any skills or any experience. We always describe it the way that we say, if you can walk, that you can snowshoe. Once you put the snowshoes on, it takes you maybe 5 minutes just to get used to the feeling, and then anybody can do it. So that's why families and people of all kinds of skills really enjoy this activity. Dog sledding, a classic Canadian experience. There are 3 different companies, one based in Lake Louise and 2 of them are in Kananaskis, just outside the national park, that offer tours from December to March, and a wide variety of tours, from short half-an-hour tour to one that lasts an hour, 2 hours, all the way to a 6-hour experience.
And this is also one of those activities that's very popular with families, the same way as the sleigh rides. I don't know, if Lucas, if you wanted to tell us a little bit about sleigh rides in the region.
Yep, so sleigh rides are offered by the same 2 companies that do horseback riding in the summer. So this photo is Banff Trail Riders doing sleigh rides in Banff, and the other company, again, Brewster Adventures, they do sleigh rides in Lake Louise. And again, depending on how much time you have, you can do like an hour long drive ride or something longer. And it's a very romantic experience where you just, you know, sit down, you put a blanket over yourself, they give you hot chocolate. So it's great for honeymoon couples and just, yeah, families in general.
Great. And you know, we briefly talked about the hot springs, which is currently closed, unfortunately, but it's one of my favorite things in Banff and Lake Louise. I wanted to talk a little bit about this, about the temperature, so the natural temperature of the water that emerges. It depends on the season. During the wintertime, the temperature is roughly around 47 degree centigrade. And in the spring, the temperature is in 27 degree Celsius or 81 Fahrenheit. And so the water is like such an amazing experience. Typically, if you do, you know, skiing, and then you go and you chill and you refresh yourself in the hot spring. It was one of my favorite things, which again, unfortunately this year is closed, but hopefully it will be open again soon for you guys to experience it. And I guess, Lucas, you also talked about a little bit about the history of the hot spring. So I guess we are good. We've already covered it, right?
Yep, we did.
Cool. Another experience is ice climbing, which is a little bit, if you are so adventurous. I personally did not see myself doing this. I'm okay hiking, biking. I'm going for this like crazy multi-day hike, but this one is a little bit out of my comfort zone.
Yes, this is definitely a niche adventure. There are couple companies that can do it. You can do like an introduction to ice climbing. This photo is taken in Johnston Canyon that we talked about before. So even if you don't want to do ice climbing and you just do the Johnston Canyon ice walk, sometimes you can see those people climbing on those frozen waterfalls. So yeah, it is special. Yeah, it is something that is definitely not for everyone. I tried it a couple times. Again, this is a proof that, you know, with zero experience and skills, you can go with one of those companies and just take a course. And there is, you know, this one that we are looking at is a little bit more advanced, but there are definitely beginner slopes that are not so steep, and they will, you know, take you through it, and it's all safe. It's just, yeah, if you want to try something special and a little bit more niche.
Cool. So here we wanted to talk about events and festivals, which I guess right now maybe a lot of them up in the air, but I wanted to also, you know, give you typically what's going to happen in a usual year in Banff and Lake Louise. And again, this year maybe things may be different. Yeah, so tell us more about this, Lucas.
So this would be our typical calendar for our events. You will notice that there are no events in summer, and it's because summer is already a fairly busy season. And we normally would have a bunch of events in November. They start with the Banff Mountain Film Festival, which is 9 days of mountain adventures and mountain culture movies. And then we would have some Christmas events, which you may question why there are Christmas events in November, but it's the funny thing that we decided to do, because what would happen in the past is that November is this kind of like the shoulder season when it's too late for hiking. Sometimes people still don't feel like skiing, so there wasn't much to do. And then all of a sudden, everybody wants to come around Christmas and New Year and gets busy. So what we decided to do was to extend Christmas season. So we are basically inviting people to come in November and enjoy Christmas already in November, the Christmas, like the field, the lights, the snow. So we would have a Santa Claus parade on Banff Avenue, normally around November 17, 18. And then the week after, we would have Banff Christmas Market for about 4 days. And right after that, there will be Banff Craft Beer Festival in November. So all these events got canceled this year. So the film festival happened online, and then the other events in November, unfortunately, had to be canceled because of COVID. And then we are still hoping to go ahead with Ice Magic Festival and Snow Days in Banff, which both of them take place in January. And Ice Magic is an ice sculpture competition. That's the photo that you see here on the slide. And then Snow Days would be snow sculptures that we built in downtown Banff. So right now our events team is busy trying to figure out and working with Town of Banff and Alberta Health Services, and basically trying to figure out how to run an event that normally would attract crowds of people. So how to do it so that people, do it in a safe way, physical distancing. So still working on it. As soon as I know more, I will let Leila know, and she can share it with you. So things are up in the air. We are still hoping to run those in January, but we don't know for sure. And then at this point, we don't know what's going to happen with Yoga Festival. And we would also host a Banff Marathon, half marathon, and 10K race in Thread Week in June. This past June, it was done as a virtual race. The physical race had to be also canceled, and we will see what happens next year. Yeah, things are just so fluid. It's really hard to plan anything more than few weeks or few months in advance at this point.
My favorite ones would be the Santa Claus, which is very also popular with families with kids. A lot of my clients, they would wanted to travel during that time. And also my other favorite is the ice sculpture in Lake Louise, and that it's quite a scene actually. In right in front of the Fairmont, they're basically sculpting all this amazing whatever that they're building, and it's very interesting. So moving forward, I wanted to also talk a little bit about some of those historic sites and museums. So the first one, White Museum of the Canadian Rockies, which it's founded by artist and Peter Catherine White, who basically the White Museum of the Canadian Rockies, and they're trying to preserve and make accessible the history and culture of the Rocky Mountains. And they typically do a lot of art exhibitions, comprehensive collection of original artworks, photographs, and other archives. But again, I'm actually not aware of what the current situation, what that is. And one of my other favorite one is the Cave and Basin National Historic Site, which preserves the stories of the hot springs that have drawn visitors to Banff since, we talked about the 3 railroad workers who stumbled across this, basically the hot spring, and how they discovered it, and the sulfuric mineral springs and interactive displays and things like that. So that is also one of my favorite things in that region. And And the other thing that I actually really like about that region is the Buffalo Nations Museum, which it has a lot to do with the heritage of the First Nations Indigenous groups that have inhabited in Banff and Lake Louise area for centuries. So that's also very interesting. And a lot of people who are staying in Fairmont, Banff Spring, would realize that there are actually tons of historic significance in that hotel as well. So it was constructed in 1888, and it marked the tourism in Canada. So that was about some of those historic sites and museums. Lucas, I don't know if you wanted to add some additional points or correct me on a couple of things, but do you have any comments for this?
You've covered it pretty well. Yeah, Cave and Basin National Historic Site. It's the one that we see here on the photo. That's where the 3 railway workers lowered themselves into the cave and discovered the hot springs. I know that they are currently open, they just limit groups. And so I think that's true for all the other museums as well. They are open, but they just limit the number of people that can go in at any given time. And the Fairmont Banff Springs, it is a kind of a funny thing where normally other hotels, you would just go there to stay or to dine and you would just only see people staying. But the 2 Fairmont properties, the Fairmont Banff Springs and the Chateau Lake Louise, are such landmarks that again, in a normal year, you actually see people coming and just either walking around and taking photos, or you can even do a tour with a historian who will take you through. So these are not just hotels when you stay there, but they are actually tourist landmarks as well.
Exactly. And here is some information for Banff Tourism, their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And again, we've come to an end of talking and taking you to Banff and Lake Louise. Again, thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope that you all learned something about Banff and Lake Louise. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put those questions in the chat box. And Lucas and I will try our best to answer. But for those of you who are following the virtual travel series, maybe while you're putting your questions up here, next week, we're actually going to somewhere warm. So we're going to Grenada, the Spice Island, next week, Thursday. I'm so excited because next week we'll be taking you to one of the safe destinations in the Caribbean. And sorry, Lucas, but we'll not be talking about skiing and and
I hope so.
snowboarding and, sleighing and that kind of stuff. We'll be talking about different things in Grenada. And again, the following week, we will be actually going to South Korea, which is another great destination in Asia. For those of you who have questions, again, feel free to unmute yourself, ask those questions, and put it in the chat box. So, okay, I see one. So there was one question about when would be the best time to travel to Banff and Lake Louise, and I think we fairly covered it. So if you're into winter stuff, skiing, it's definitely wintertime. If you want the price to be lower and still have experience of Christmas and winter season, maybe November would be the fantastic time to actually travel during that time, because as Lucas mentioned, they are actually purposely and intentionally putting the November up so that they can attract more visitors during the little bit of off season, so you could get better pricing. And there will be a lot of Christmas vibe in the village and in Banff and Lake Louise, so you're not basically missing out anything. Or as I mentioned, January also would be a great time as for the ice sculpture festival, which I am actually a big fan of. And but if you're looking into if you're looking into summertime, kayaking, canoeing, things like that, obviously summer would be a perfect time for that. And if you're also looking into experiencing the Rocky Mountaineer and combining that with Banff and Lake Louise, as I mentioned, so the time is from spring all the way to fall. They operate between April up until about October, after the Thanksgiving long weekend. Lucas, do you want to add any other?
Good. Yeah, again, you covered it pretty well. I'm just looking at the chat. There is one more question that I see.
Yes.
Brenda is asking if prices have gone up on tours now that they are operating at a lower capacity. So in general, the prices stay the same. mostly because operators of those tours are realizing that people, might be still hesitant to travel or go on these tours. So the ones that are not operated on private basis, the pricing stayed pretty much the same. And then when you book a private tour, then the price is higher, but then it depends on what exactly you book, because they can customize it and it depends on number of people. So I wouldn't have those prices. But for the public tours, if you want to call them that, the pricing didn't go up yet, or at this point.
Okay, it doesn't seem to be another question. No, it doesn't. It does not seem to be any other question. So if there are not any other questions, again, thank you so much. Lucas, thank you so much for spending your evening with us here. I guess the majority of us we were in Ontario or Quebec, so more on the, oh, actually, no, we got some folks on in Alberta as well. But again, thank you so much for taking us there and sharing your knowledge with us. I hope that everyone else here on the call also learned something new about the region. And again, thank you so much. And again, for those of you who are joining the virtual travel series, thank you so much. And let me know if you have any other questions or if you are thinking about traveling. One of the things that I personally shared was even if you're not comfortable with the idea of traveling right now is the best time to start planning, because the prices are lower. There is a lot of flexibility here. A lot of tour operators need business, so it's a great time to start doing it. And that's what I'm doing for myself and for my family. And that's the same advice that I am providing to my clients. Again, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Lucas, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Ayla, for having me. It was fun. Thank you all.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Take care.